It's maybe the night that my dreams might let me know. All the stars are closer. All the stars are closer.
Tell me what you gonna do to me. Confrontation ain't nothing new to me. You could bring a bullet, bring a sword, bring a morgue, but you can't bring the truth to me.
Alexa, play Kendrick Lamar and SZA.
Okay.
Maybe the night that my dreams might let me know. All the stars are closer.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get tens of millions of songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing fans joining us around the world. It's time for the bout you've all been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We're rooting, and we go into that fight is to land on the line.
Minnesota Vikings fans, the Purple Podcast Eaters, the Purple People Eater Podcast returns. I said that wrong, right? Originally, the Purple People Eaters Podcast returns. I am your host, Chris Carlson. Hope everybody's having a good Monday. Obviously, it's always fun to talk Minnesota Vikings win, lose, or draw, but I got to admit, it's better when our Minnesota Vikings come off a big road victory. Yes, it's not the best victory out there, but it definitely was needed, right? They all are needed, I suppose, from this point on. But we are back with another Purple People Eaters podcast. Hey, I said it right this time. Yeah, man, great win yesterday, and the best thing about it, there were some cons. There were plenty of pros, plenty of cons, plenty of negatives, especially injury. Injuries are starting to pile up. But the best thing about yesterday is we finally finished. The Vikings finally put the pedal to the metal. They kept that foot on the neck of the Jets, the Jets. Oh, my God. I'm trying to do their chant. I can't even talk right now. My cat totally screwed me, clawed me in the leg. I was able to not scream or get too pissed, but I'm okay. Anyway, why don't we start to get down to the nitty-gritty? Obviously, we're going to start the show with recap from that Jets victory, some of the topics overall that we'll be discussing. Like I said, finishing strong. More Thielen praise. I mean, how many more times can we talk about this guy in the show? More positives on the rushing game. Timely runs, especially just like the week before. The offensive line, kind of the good and bad. Some penalties was a little too much. The third down defense, and just defense overall, especially if you consider some of the injuries they're starting to come up on, they played phenomenal. Now, the first and second down defense, not as positive, but still, still great. So those are a variety of topics we're going to cover. We're obviously going to look forward to next Sunday night and preview and predict the New Orleans Saints game. That's a big one. What are they, 5-1? The offense is obviously phenomenal, like it normally is. It's a well-oiled machine, but that's going to all come to a stop. That's all. Stop it. That's all going to come to an end. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, we are going to talk about that big game within the NFC, man. Huge game. And Monday morning, Sunday night, seeing that Central Division race now, it's always been tight, of course. It will be probably, from here on out. But, man, you got to love seeing the Vikings in first place, right? So we're going to preview that game. We're also going to talk a little Gophers football, we're going to review that ugly loss that I basically called. I don't know how deep I went on this show with it. I know I talked about in the back of your head living in Loserville that you feel like you're going to lose this game. But on my college football podcast, I definitely called out. I actually put money on this, unfortunately. And then we're going to preview the Indiana game. They're a pretty good team, man. They're a pretty good team. They got offense. They got good coaching. It's going to be a tough one. Anyway, if this is your first time listening to the Purple People Eaters podcast, we stream it live on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. So it's under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast umbrella. We like I said, it archives here. It streams live. You can call 646-381-4990. That is the number to call in if you want to just, take the show with you while you're running errands or you're stuck in traffic that's starting to pile up. I suppose it's all piled up on the West Coast anyway. But just in general, take us with you, or you can join by pressing 1 as well. We're also available to subscribe to the Purple People Eaters podcast. And I'm having problems here. My cat just scratched me again, and I cannot get to it to kick it out of the room. But anyway, I'll try to make it here. And my co-host hasn't showed up just yet. So I may be going solo. You never know. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, it's available under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast is the Purple People Eaters pod. You can subscribe on iTunes, otherwise known as Apple Podcast. You can check it out on Player FM, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud. I mean, anywhere you listen to pods, there's a great chance that the Purple People Eaters podcast and the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast will be available. We're also available on the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, and the show will stream live on iHeartRadio and on Spotify. You can check out the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. It's got football, it's got basketball, it's got boxing, it's baseball, everything in between. They even got CFL updates. Head on over to gruelingtruth.net. That's the gruelingtruth.net. You can listen to a podcast. You can, read an article. And while you're at it, you can place a bet. It'll link you right to mybookie.ag. That's right, mybookie.ag. So I haven't heard back from my co-host yet. There could have been, life kind of just gets in the way sometimes, so it could be that. You never know. Maybe sometimes you fall asleep. You just had a full day and you relax on the couch. You're like, all right, the show's starting at 7. Yeah, no problem. I'll get there. I'll get there. But maybe, hopefully it's nothing, hopefully there's no problem. That's really the big hope there. But if I got to go solo, I'm used to doing that. I can do that. But we'll see. Maybe he'll call in just a couple of minutes here. But anyway, let's start with recapping this game. And when I say this game, I obviously mean the Jets, right? The Jets, Jets, Jets. As the song goes, and I didn't get scratched by my cat, I actually think I was able to maneuver the cat out of here. Now I just got to make sure that door's tightened. Anyway, the way the game started, it was wonderful right away. Like plays, right? 4 plays, deep pass to Thielen. It seemed like he already tied the record, on that play. It was just like, okay, here he goes. And then it was kind of a punt fest for a while. There wasn't, beyond the 2 touchdowns, because they did later, I think on their 3rd possession, they had a 6-play, 86-yard drive that really didn't take much time up, 7-7. And like I said, it was basically a punt fest. There was a turnover. We did miss a field goal. Now that missed field goal was what was it, 42 yards? I think a lot of that had to do with, the wind. The wind was it was a windy day. It was very strong, and there were snowflakes in the air. Not that really matters. Heading into it, we didn't have Lindell Joseph, or we also didn't have Delvin Cook, which is a little troublesome. That hamstring is not healing like we'd want it to. But like I said, not a whole lot of action. I mean, defensively, very action-packed, if you want to look at it that way. That's for sure. But, yeah, if you look at, like, the halftime stats, it was a defensive battle, man. It really, really was. And I'm trying to find the stats here real quick. Yeah, so they had 24 yards rushing and 85 yards passing. We had a little bit more yards passing, 91 to 15, and we only had 15 rushing yards at that time. 0 for 6 and 0 for 8 on third down. Both of them had that one turnover. That was a little bit of a difference maker there. But, you know, so I'm thinking, okay, wow, that there wasn't much there. Like, we got to really get this thing going, and we come out, get a stop on defense, and then get the ball back, you know, in that second half, and have a great drive. 9 plays, 64 yards. It felt good at that moment. Okay, you put something on the board. You had a nice drive. That's the second week in a row. Or was it the third week? For sure the second week in a row where we came out there. We didn't quite double dip. We almost double dipped because we missed that field goal to score at the end of the second and come out in the third. That's the old double dip. We talked about that last week. But then the defense started turning the ball over. Got an interception, which led to a field goal. And they got a field goal to us 20-10. And even in that first half, just to cover a little bit more of that first half, I felt like there just wasn't enough points considering the field position, whether it was special teams, you know, with Sherrill returning and our defense, you know, trapping them way back, or the turnovers from our defense in general. We just, considering the field position, I was a little disappointed we only had 10 points. But the second half, they definitely picked up. Now, they got helped out, like I said, from special teams, defense. But, you know, it is what it is. I guess some of the first half things that it kind of lingered into the second half, but mostly first half was Cousins with the batted ball. I think that's 15 now. There was a Stephon Diggs slant in the end zone that would have been a touchdown. He was open. We've actually had that play a couple times where he scored on. That got knocked down. You know, I think it was a third down play that got knocked down. So that was a little troublesome, not as crazy as the week before. Thielen early on made that great grab for a first down, and a great pass too, and that touchdown was a great pass too. In catch, just money. Cousins, you know, there's some complaints out there about, you know, the batted balls, ball security. There was another side throw that didn't quite go, you know, that turned into a lateral again. That was he was trying to throw it away, and that's smart and fine and dandy, but that's back-to-back weeks for you like, dog. Or was that was 2 weeks ago? That was 2 weeks ago. Or wait. No, it wasn't. It was a week ago. Here I am getting confused. I wish my co-host would call in so he could help me out on that. They did hit that when it was 20-10 though. They hit a 55-yard field goal, but the win was at the back. It was kind of late third at that point. But as far as first half, you know, Weatherly played a really nice game, especially first half. He covered a tight end a couple of times, made some good plays on defense in general. Both sides, like I mentioned, at half and throughout the game, defense-wise, were you know, stymie on third down, no doubt about that. But like I said, that miss was mostly due to the win. It looked like it was dead on, and it just didn't go well for him. But that was six field goals now. That was the sixth one. 6 field goals missed this year. Leads the NFL. We also lead the NFL in batted balls. I think they got the third down. We actually lead in third down, you know, percentage as well. We talked about that percentage last week a little bit and how it's getting closer and closer to last year's record-breaking third down percentage as far as holding teams on defense. I think they got to like 0-17 or 0-18, continuing from last week. I believe so. But then, there was actually a 70-yard punt too, that took a great bounce. Defensive-wise, just keep talking about it as the game goes on. Sam Darnold, I think let me check what the actual stats were on that. Two of the first downs, I think both of the first downs, because there was only 2 of 13. We were 2 of 15 too, so that's not that great, is it? But 2 of 13, I think they came on both runs. One was a scramble and one was like a called run, I believe. So that's phenomenal. You know what I mean? That's sweet. That's really great. Have I said phenomenal like 3 or 4 times? I believe I have. I apologize. But yeah, 20-10 after that long field goal. We've had this point before where we were up on Philly. The Vikes were all up on the Niners, and they didn't. I mean, they ultimately finished, but not the way you'd like to. Once you get up on a squad, you want to put them in the dirt, right? Like I said, you want to finish it off strong. And once they got to 27-10 with the long run by Murray, I think it was a 38-yard run. And in the second half, I think it was pretty sure Rock Thomas only carried the ball once, but it was like a 25-yard pickup on a 1st and 20 after a penalty. Then Murray, I think, followed right behind it on that. I think it was on that touchdown run to make it 27-10. And I thought, all right, here we go. That's how you put them away. Now, the Jets, to their credit, tried to stay in this thing. They mounted a nice drive, 9 plays over 3 minutes long, 59 yards to make it 27-17. And I thought, okay, I got to say, it's not easy to put teams away. Maybe just really horrible teams, sure. But it's not in the NFL. It's not that easy to separate yourself. Especially, the Jets were a pretty good team. Yeah, they got a rookie quarterback, but he had played well of late. I guess my point is, when it was 27-17, I thought, okay, man, we still got a lead. I'm still feeling confident, but we got to put them away. And sure enough, we had a 3-and-out. And some of the deep routes, a lot of the routes that we run were a little bit tougher in that wind. Did seem like even Zimmer said today, that Thielen and Diggs were doubled up. They were playing deep. So we started to run more. And that's exactly what we did. Now, after that 3-and-out, we were able to get an interception like 2 plays later. And then we took advantage of it, had a nice 7-play drive, made it 34-17, had another interception on the next possession that the Jets had, turned that into a field goal. Once it was 37-17, it was obviously a wrap at that point. So, yeah, a great victory, really, when it comes down to it. Great catch and throw once again. I think it was on a 4th down, wasn't it, for that Robinson touchdown? Holton Hill got an interception as well. I really thought that Harrison Smith was gonna return that all the way. It kind of looked like he was gonna, but he got a little caught up near the end. But overall, really, an interesting game, man. That I loved how we closed, and I'm starting to think that my co-host, like I said, I really hope there's nothing wrong. I hope he just fell asleep on accident, or something just came up and it's not serious. But anyway, so I think it is just going to be me. So we're going to shorten the show by a lot. Well, I guess not that crazy amount. It's still going to last a little bit here. But as far as, some of the topics that we were planning on kind of going back and forth and discussing, well, the first one was just finishing strong, dude. We finally, and I know I've said it a couple times, but it's important. 37-17 17 on the road. I don't care who you're playing, but we're playing a 3-3, team who showed life in the fourth quarter. When we got up by 27-10, I thought, all right, let's do it. And like I said, I got to give them a little credit because they did battle back off that. So kudos to the defense, offense, special teams. It was a team win, and they finally closed the door on a team at the time they needed to close the damn door on. So that's positive. Now, what are we up to? 3 wins in a row. First place again, 4-2-1. The Packers had a bye week, so they didn't. They just kind of were neutral. They were just kind of Switzerland for the week. Didn't win, didn't lose, but they probably need to get healthy a little bit, especially at QB. Obviously, for Cousins. Well, actually, let's not get the Cousins first. Let's get the Thielen. It literally in the detail it says more Thielen praise, and I mean this guy just keeps piling up the stats, and as far as just consecutive games in a row with 100 yards, he's moving in now. It's 7. He's tied 3 guys, that Charles Hennington, Michael Irving in 95, Demaryius Thomas, in 2008 or 14, and then Calvin Johnson in 2012 had 8 in a row. And we're not talking about to start the season. We're just talking about in a row. So if he gets it next week, he's going to tie the longest, streak for that as well with Calvin Johnson. So that's good company to be in, obviously. But yeah, now he's tied the record set back in 1961, I think it was, or was it 71? But yeah, the defense just shut down. Like, there was a moment there. Well, you know what? I'll get to the defense in a second. But Thielen, he just keeps coming up with big plays. And I think I heard on K-Fan today that Diggs had 8 catches for like 30-some-odd yards, and I think he had the most catches for least yards ever. I think Chris Carter had like 8 for 40 or something like that. But he made still a couple of key catches, though. It did seem like every time he caught the ball, he was getting hit, Got a couple of first downs, but there was a moment there where I thought, man, we got to get this running, this rushing game going, and we did. Murray's the type of guy, he's a north-south guy. He needs a hole. He needs a hole to run through, but we gave him a couple of big ones. And just like last week, 2 weeks ago, really, timely running where you got up to 80 or 90 yards. Obviously, last week was a $150, so that was that was huge. That was, I think, what would we say, the biggest rushing game since 2014 or something like that. It was. I can't remember the stat on that, but positives for the O-line. They're protecting pretty well for passing, but they're starting to open up some big, big holes. And Pat Eflin, the center, ever since Eflin's come back, we got to say there's been a noticeable, change there. I think it's obvious. And they were chunk runs, in the first half and even some in the third quarter. It was like, okay, 4 yards here, 2 yards there, 8 yards there. But then they started, getting to 20 and 30 and touchdown runs. You got to love touchdown runs. And once he gets in the open field, gets to that second and third level, it's almost a wrap with him. Because you're like, oh, dude, once that freight train gets rolling, man, he's got some speed too. So kudos to the rushing attack. Like I said, Rock Thomas got in there for 1 on a 1st and 20 and made good on it. We had some clutch throws on 4th down, actually, that 1 4th down play, too. Not too many on 3rd down, obviously. We only completed 2 of them. So that's not always a good thing. But so that basically wraps up the offense. Like I said, I thought that, Collins, the offensive line, pretty good. Starting to, O'Neal is really starting to play well there at tackle. That's a great sign. He got a little banged up, but I believe he came back in. The bad is the penalties. There were a couple of runs that, maybe that's the reason why, Murray was able to get those 10 or 15-yard, runs that had to be called back. But maybe sometimes it's on the opposite side, but it was still a hold, and it wouldn't have affected the play, but still it's a hold, So that's an issue there. I want to say there was one on the running back too. But the holding calls, not that we were like crazy penalized, but the holding calls were just a little too much for my liking. Defense, I mean, there was a moment there where they only had one first down in 7 possessions. And they were starting at their own 7, their own 16, their own 20, their own 25. Now they started getting some big returns near the end of the game, but it was punt. That 7 possession was punt, fumble, punt, half punt. You know what I mean? So the defense played great, especially on third down. I believe it got to 0 of 17 or 0 of 19 in that range on third down, and it's just they played great. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there was a moment there where we had 148 yards to make it 254. And for the Jets had 109 total yards in the first half. There was a moment in the second half. They got some late, but they were only at 21 yards in the second half, late third quarter, early fourth. Like I said, they did get some yards beyond that. Some of it was, let's face it, it was kind of garbage. You know what I mean? Sam started out 6 of 9 with that TD in the first quarter. Then it was 11 of 33 with 3 picks in the final 3 quarters. That is the worst completion percentage in the final 3 quarters of any game by a QB this season, minimum 15 attempts. So that just goes to show you. I could throw a bunch of stats at you, but you can't really beat that one. Now, obviously, I talk about the third down. I talk about all the positives, and there were a lot. The secondary played good. Again, no doubt about it. Waynes played good. That was one of his better games, I'd say, Trey Waynes, who's been kind of hit or miss. Some games, last year he really came on strong, but, he had a good game. He had a really solid game. Now, the first and second down woes, I talk about the success in the elite level of the third down the last couple of years, under Zimmer, but, wow. The first and second down, we do have some woes there. We do have some issues that we're still going to have to get corrected, especially playing the Saints. The Saints are coming into town, so they can chuck the ball all over the place. They can run a little bit, not as much as you'd think, because they have an all-purpose, running back. So, man, we gotta correct that first and second down, though. I mean, we are getting to a fair amount of third downs, but it can't be like that Rams game where you look at the percentage of, 1 of 6 or something like that, but only 6 times you force them in the third down. That's not good. We're gonna have to let them pick up those 6 and 7 and 4 and 5 yard little routes. You know what I mean? It just little gains. We can't give up the chunk plays on first and second down, though. That's kind of been our MO this year. And even though the defense has played a lot better the last couple of, games, that's still an area of concern. And the biggest concern right now for defense is the injuries piling up. I talked about we came in the game without Lindell and, obviously we still don't have Griff. We don't really know if he'll ever come back. We feel like he's going to, but we don't know. So you can't necessarily count on it. Anthony Barr was held back from a hamstring. He played, but then, hurt it, and he was held out. Xavier Rhodes tweaked his ankle on a bang-bang play that just happens. But I think he'll be fine. We're going to need him to be fine. That's for damn sure. And also on the offensive side, Tom Compton did get hurt as well. The only thing is, the only bad thing about doing the show on Monday, is the fact that the injuries are so, they're going to be general and vague as it is, you know what I mean? But on Monday when they're just seeing how bad it is, the swelling and whatnot, and it's really tough to tell. You know, it's tough to tell anyway. So you'd hope we don't have Joseph, and Xavier and Barr out going against the Saints. That would be troublesome. That would really, really suck, man, to already not have Griff. But just imagine if and when, we don't know if that's true, but it feels like it's going to happen. I think we talked a little bit about it last week, how the 2-week gap might be a good time to bring him back and let him kind of get in shape a little bit, get his legs underneath him for those 2 weeks. Maybe when, he can come back in the facility and start working out when a lot of people will be out of the facility. Overall, they give you a couple, probably 3-4 days of break just to get your head right. A lot of people, leave the state even sometimes and just get away. Getting some warmth, too. It was nice today, though. But, yeah, man, I think you bring him back there. You give him about 5 days to kind of condition, and then you condition him and you get him into practice, kind of work his way into practice a little bit. And obviously the first couple of games, I'm sure it'll be more of a rotation with him just because we now have more depth with Weatherly and company, and the fact that he's gonna need some time. He's gonna need to get his legs underneath him. So we'll see. But man, that would suck. But what I was saying though, just to finish my train of thought. My co-host has joined. Cool. I'm gonna go to you in just a second, Aaron. What I was saying is, in the next couple of weeks, to have both Cook on offense back and to have Griff back, difference makers 100%. I mean, Murray is a solid back, and he wears you down. He is the type of guy to wear you down, but Cook can wear you down, and he's just more versatile, plain and simple. But it's harder to say that he's going to have fresh legs, but he will. Fresher joints, I guess you could say, less, bumps and bruises. He hasn't been getting nicked up. But so fresh legs overall, except, that hamstring. So that sometimes in your injury, you can say, oh, he's got fresh legs. Yeah, but then again, he's got a hamstring that could give it at any time. So, but I still think overall, especially at a running back position, taking as many hits as you do, I think he'll be fresh. And then to have Griff back fresh, who's one of the best, if not, he's up there for best pass rushers in the last 5-6 years. So it's like making a great trade or getting a late free agent or a late pickup into the baseball playoffs. You know what I mean? So that would be phenomenal, dude. So, we're going to preview the Saints game in just a short little bit. Vikings fans tend to at least care about the Gophers. Probably not right now, and that's understandable with how this Big Ten part of the season is gone after starting 3-0. How many times did we start 3-1 and 4-0 and 3-0 in the past and just shit on ourselves after that? I mean, it's like a broken record. We've seen that so many times. So it's tough. So we're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna review a little bit of the ugly loss to Nebraska. We're gonna preview that Indiana game. We're not gonna spend a bunch of time on that, but that'll be the last thing that we do talk about. But I'm gonna go ahead and bring in Aaron, my co-host, see what's going on. What's going on, Aaron? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Chris, it's good to be back on the Purple People Eaters podcast. I had a little problem getting through on the phone, but it seems like everything's working out now. Pretty good, man. Good game on Sunday. Where'd you leave off?
Well, I mean, I basically and next time I can maybe, if you ever have that problem, because every once in a while, sometimes you get on and it'll knock you off. Sometimes it won't let you in. It's just a weird glitch a couple times a year, but you can also call me, and I can chime you in, too, in a different route if that ever happens in the future, too. But I basically just recap the game, I went over a lot of the topics, that we plan on discussing. So I guess in a nutshell, you can just start with your thoughts on the game overall, and you could touch upon some of these topics. I did cover a fair amount of them, but just kind of your take with them. And so we'll just start with the Jets recap and just kind of maybe some topics that you wanted to mention or add on to what we were talking about already, and then we'll start previewing that the big game with New Orleans Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday night's going to be a big game in the U.S. Bank Stadium. Going back to the Jets game, a little road game we had on Sunday, I thought the offense started pretty strong. They got an opening touchdown on the opening drive, so things were looking really good from there. I think that overall they ran the ball as well as we've seen all year. I thought Latavius was and has been a really great running back in the loss of Cook. He's still iffy. Don't know when he's going to be back. I wonder if they're going to hold him out until the bye and then maybe go forward from there. But that's just my thoughts. Maybe if you've already lost him for so long already, might as well just take the next week or two and just make sure everything's great for the stretch run of the season. I thought the offensive line played incredibly well. Best again I've seen all year. Good pass protection. I don't think they gave up one sack. O'Neill's playing really well, came in strong at right tackle. So I think he's improving every week. I know Zimmer said he's really happy with the way he's playing there. So I wonder, barring any injury, if they'll be putting him on the bench again or just keep him as a starter. I know Riley's supposed to be back this week, which is good with the Saints coming into town. Tom Compton went down. Like I said, it's Monday, so we don't really know a lot about that injury, but it didn't look good game time. So I thought maybe, Isadora came in and played well. I think we have Brett Jones, too, to come in and cover there. A little bit of questionable play calling, I thought. A lot of motion and a lot of, I'm not going to say trick plays, but just plays that we're not used to seeing. A lot of things to Diggs. I thought they kind of force-fed Diggs a little bit, which, I guess you try to do to get him the ball and get him involved. But you don't really see that a lot. I know they said they covered both him. They double-covered Diggs and Thielen for pretty much the majority of third downs during the game. So now we're starting to see defenses trying to kind of deal with the two-headed monster that is Diggs and Thielen. So I think that's something just to keep an eye on and see how defenses approach those two players going forward. As far as offense, I just thought it was a pretty clean game. It got a little boring there in the second and third quarter, but I thought the first and the fourth quarters they played really, really well and seemed like timing, and I really liked what they did offensively. Now, defensively, on the other hand, injuries are adding up. We got Rhodes out and Joseph out. It's like Barr got hurt a little bit, which, you don't really see Barr hurt all that much. I think he's played a lot of games in a row here. Can't remember the last injury where he was out, so that'll be interesting. I don't know if he'll be back either. It's Monday. Injury reports haven't come in, so we don't really know yet what his situation is, but it'd really be nice to have him back for Sunday night. But I think the Rhodes injury seems to be the one that's really sticky with Drew Brees and Michael Thomas coming into town. So, a healthy Rhodes can cover Thomas as well as anybody else has been able to in the league. So it kind of makes you wonder, if Rhodes is not able to play, who's going to come in there? Is Hill going to play? I thought he played pretty well in his limited time, and he's got the same sort of body type as Rhodes. So, you think, well, maybe, but that's where experience comes in. How much experience does he have? I think Rhodes has been in the league for 5, 6, 7 years now. So he's got a lot of experience and he knows a lot. So if Hill is pushed to that side, are they going to maybe put Waynes on Thomas and see, try their luck there? Eric Wilson came in for Anthony Barr. I've kind of been waiting to see him play. I really liked him, seeing him in preseason and other things. So I'm pretty confident with him if he has to fill in. The linebacker depth is pretty good. Overall, I think just the whole team, the depth situation seems to be pretty good. Anybody that comes in for an injury or some guy being out,
it's
seems like we got a guy who can play. Yeah, it really is.
Proof is in the pudding, right?
Right, and it seems like you got guys that can come in and play. And season makes you wonder, if you can get more of a rotation going, if these guys can hold up. Maybe you start to put more guys in different situations. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise to get some guys hurt, to see what other guys can do. Wayne's played really well. He's been playing really well. His thing's always injury, If he stays on the field, he's definitely a good number 2 corner and maybe a number 1 on some teams, but, he just seems to get nicked up a lot, so maybe he can stay strong. And I guess, Chris, what do you think we do if Sendejo's ready to go on Sunday, and, do you put him back in, or do you like the way the safeties have been playing and maybe put Sendejo back into some sort of reserve role? I think Ialoka and Kurse have played really, really well spelling him, and the defense has played really well in that. Do you just because he's that's his job, do you put him back in? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question. I think you could rotate him in. I think we could, we played big nickel a chunk of the time that we were talking about, that big nickel, so you could still keep, Ialoka on the field. So yeah, I think you play him. I think you play him because it does seem like, although you're right, Kurse has played a little better. I guess you can, basically ground him or put him on a timeout if he doesn't wrap up or something like that, which he does a couple of times a month, where you're like, oh, dude, what the hell? But yeah, you're right. That is his spot, and it has been for the last couple of years, but we have been trying to replace him in a sense, you know what I mean? So we know we can do better, but money-wise, definitely if he wants to be on the squad next year, he's going to have to come down on some money or whatever. I think there's a team option on it, if I'm not mistaken, but I think he'd be more like a rotation guy. That's my thing. We could still play the big nickel, and have him in there as well. I think you can play him. Overall, he's just more experienced, especially in the system. But you're right, Kurse has played well, and I mean, the guy that's been in the system for the, almost the longest, if you think about it. It's nice that the first couple of weeks he didn't really get too much in there. We were kind of wondering what's up with him, but he was kind of acclimating to everything. And I don't want to have Sendejo and that's it for the majority. If anything, split in time for sure, because I really like this veteran safety, man. And he's just a big dude. I don't know. He's got the finesse to cover up, but also, he can hit you. He can wrap up. Speaking of finesse, though, how'd you like seeing Weatherly breaking up some coverage there on a couple times on a tight end, especially on a third down play? That was pretty cool. But to answer your question, I'd say rotate him in. You know what I mean? Give him some plays, no doubt. I'd say more plays than Kurse if he's feeling obviously okay. Was it a concussion this time? What was it? I forgot what he got hurt with. I completely spaced that.
I can't answer that really either because I don't really remember the injury at all, and he's been gone for 2-3 games now, and I don't know if it's a leg or a concussion. I know we've asked ourselves that before. Maybe we'll do a little look and see. But overall thought was just like, man, we've got a lot of depth and guys that have been in their depth positions for 2 or 3 years. Like another name to bring up on the safety topic was Anthony Harris. He just comes in and makes plays. Yeah. He's been with us for 3 or 4 years. I wonder if it kind of opens Zim's eyes to like, maybe, hey, I got a lot of players here and I can do a lot with a lot of players and they're all seeming to play well and step up. Maybe you start to rotate a little bit more. Maybe he's gaining a little more trust in some of his depth guys, or maybe there are different skill sets where he can use different guys at different times. So I think a lot of his injuries might turn out to be sort of a silver lining in that you get to see, the guys that have been sitting for you come in and make plays and start to work around. I know we're thin in the secondary, but, we lost Newman. We've lost Rhodes now briefly. And then the other rookie, Mike Hughes, we still got guys that can come in. I'm not I'm not saying that Hill's, going to be instantly great or anything, but he's definitely adequate. And so, I kind of saw that throughout training camp. He's got 6'2" or something, and he's 200 pounds. He's a big corner like Rhodes.
Yeah, you mentioned him a handful of times. You definitely talked about him. I remember that. Jalen Holmes as well has been playing pretty well, too. Defensive lineman from Ohio State. And by the way, it was a groin for Sendejo.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's a groin. So, yeah, I mean, that's about a 4-week deal maybe if you really hurt it badly. So, yeah, I think that you just see a lot of guys, like you mentioned Weatherly, and that defensive line rotation is solid. There's like 9 guys. You could list them off. You got Perry and Holmes, the two Johnsons, just guys that you can roll in there and just keep flowing. And I think you can do that in a lot of positions. We're weak at the outside corner right now. And even Mackenzie Alexander, you didn't hear his name once during the Jet game, so he played fairly well. So I just think, now is the time. Maybe you start to look and go, geez, who does this well? Who does that well? Start to mix them into different defensive packages and maybe start playing mismatch a little bit and see what kind of skill sets you got on different guys, because it appears that you sure have a lot of them defensively.
Yeah, you're right, and it is a blessing in disguise. These are. It's not like they're playing fourth quarter when fantasy points become, the value. When the game's over or something like that. These are just as clutch as games as they are going to be late, just because of our, when we started out our record 1-2-1. I mean, now that we've worked ourselves to 4-2-1, and doesn't it look nice when you go on our standings and seeing those Vikings in first place? You're like, yep, that's where we belong. But yeah, these are crucial plays. These are crucial minutes they're getting too. So it kind of started with obviously Griff, and Weatherly getting a lot of time, but there's been more and more of that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the depth is pretty damn impressive. And like I said earlier, I got to give you credit because even not even on the podcast per se. I know you mentioned it a couple times, but you definitely mentioned it off air a couple of times about Holton Hill. He got in there and he does look the part. You could tell Zimmer likes him just the way he talks about him. He's putting him in right now, and we could have signed a veteran guy and not had him. And sure enough, he goes and makes a play. He was in somewhat good position. I'll tell you what, yesterday that wind had a lot. I know what you're saying. I wanted to follow up on those plays you were talking about, the gimmick plays, and it did seem like we were just trying to slant the hell out of it because of the wind, whereas it's kind of weird. They were a little bit more dedicated to the run early and just throwing the ball deep. Now, some of it, was due to, Sam Darnold could do that, but also the wind to their back and all that as well. But I did think we mixed it up better in the second half as far as routes and not just trying to short pass because of the win and just kind of own it and say, screw it, we're just gonna do it. But you're right, there were a couple of plays that little gimmicky and little college football-ish, and we lost yards on a lot of those. Oh, now it's 2nd and 14. Like, we just picked up 3 yards on first down, and now we're gonna do that. Like, and Zimmer even said, maybe it should have been run instead of pass run or run pass. Run on first down and then see where we are on third down. So I'm glad you brought that point up because there were a couple of times where I'm like, I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. Last week, maybe it was because of, Diggs has actually had a little end around and he had a little success off that. So maybe we put it on tape and they just caught up to it or whatever. But I'm glad you brought that up because there were a couple of gimmicky plays. And it seemed like the first half, it just seemed like they were too worried about the wind. And I could see when you're kicking, that 42-yard miss, I really don't chalk that up as a miss because I don't know what you thought about it, but when it came off his foot, it looked like it was good to go. And then it just went sideways. And even that short one that barely got in there, that could really tell you just how windy it was, especially when we were kicking. It seemed like we were at that. They were talking about how there was a little bit of opening on the one side of the field where we kicked some of those field goals. But we have 6 field goal misses now. But like I said, that leads the NFL. But like I said, that miss isn't as bad for me, not like some of these other ones. But, yeah, man, the depth on both sides really is coming through, but especially defensively. It is worrisome heading into the Saints game where they have this crazy offense, and Joseph is banged up in 3 places. Griff's not coming back next week. Barr, hamstring. How bad was it? I don't know. If it was horrible, they probably would have put him in the back and started rehabbing him right away. I don't know where that's going to lead him. And then, with a twisted ankle, you never really know if Rhodes is going to be 100% or close enough. Usually by mid-season, you're not 100%. And I'll tell you what, 2 more weeks to go, and this late is just perfect timing for us. I know I've said it a couple times. I love this late bye, but it seems like, the injuries piling up on defense, we're really going to need that bye, man.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that about the bye. And it just seems like things are kind of lining up, maybe not on the field, but off the field schedule-wise and stuff. It just kind of feels like, the momentum is heading in the point. Nobody's hurt enough that at this point where they're not going to come back after the bye. And we could come back fresh after the bye, even with having Griffin back, having Cook back. I think that's the goal, to try to hit the second half, because that's a very important second half of the season. A lot of divisional games. I think you got the Lions. Basically, you wrap around the bye with them, 2 with the Lions, 2 with the Bears, 1 with the Packers, and then I think you got the Patriots in that stretch. And so you've got a lot of really important games, and it'd be nice to be 100% healthy for that. And I think that's kind of what we're angling towards. About the plays in the backfield, I've just never been especially when you get to the NFL. I'm not a real big fan of, tricky, fun stuff behind the line of scrimmage, just because the athletes are so much better and so much better coached that it's kind of hard to get away with that stuff. But, you've seen it done. I think if you do it sparingly. But I think you were right, your point about the wind. I don't think I've seen a game affected by the wind as much as I had on that game Sunday. It just seemed like that kick from Bailey, the wind totally took it. You're absolutely right. It was come off his foot, came up, and the wind just pulled it probably 10, 15 yards. So nobody really blames him for that. That wind was just atrocious. Throwing it. Now, both of our touchdowns were in the wind, I think, that Kirk threw.
Right.
I think I know one was for sure.
Yeah,
but,
you're right.
And they didn't really throw much into the wind. They tried to run the ball through that. So I thought that wind must have been something. I know they showed the flags outside the stadium. They're just ripping out there. So, that was a weird situation as far as the wind goes. I'm glad we got to run the ball a little bit there. But, totally. And the depth and all the stuff, things are feel like they're lining up. And I was going to mention about Hill as well. Just one thing I noticed is the kid just seemed like cool as ice. He's like, this is his first real playing time, and he just comes in and he's just like ho-hum, making plays. That was an easy play. That was kind of like Hughes' interception. It was right to him. But, you see guys drop those, and you see Xavier drop those a lot. His hands are not the greatest. That's why he's a defensive back. But, Hill just seemed like it wasn't too big for him, and he's just out there doing his job. And, either that's going to prove to be, maybe he's lackadaisical, or maybe that's what he does, and he's good at it, and he knows what he's doing. Either way, he got more depth. And, I think the off season is going to be really important for guys like Sendejo and so on, because now if you start to see this depth push up and guys that are making plays, they're probably cheaper. Even Barr's situation now with Wilson, I really like Eric Wilson. I think if we get to see him play, you're going to see a really great linebacker. He's smaller, but he'd be like I would compare it to maybe having like 2 Eric Kendrickses out there instead of a Barr guy. So, I like Anthony. I hope he sticks around for a long time. I hope we sign him. I think he's a really great football player. But, you worry a little bit less when you know you have the depth. And Gideon can play too. He hasn't really gotten too many plays. I don't know if he's fast enough I'm a little worried. What are your thoughts? Oh, I guess we haven't really gotten into the Saints yet, but the thing that scares me is two things that scare me. Okay, well, there's two things that really kind of got me a little iffy on the Saints game is, one, the matchup. If Rhodes and Michael Thomas, if Rhodes is healthy, that's one thing. If he's not healthy, then, what do you do? What do you do with Michael Thomas? And the other one is who's going to cover Alvin Kamara when he comes out of the backfield and catches passes. That, even Kendricks couldn't handle him last year. And do we have a linebacker or a safety who can hang with Kamara out of the backfield? Or how do you play it? Do you spy him? I mean, how do you play that defensively? That's my problem going in. Like, even if we're 100% healthy, when we get pressure, Kamara is still your outlet. And do we have anybody who can stay with him?
Well, I mean, I guess you could make the case the league really can't stay with him too much based off his last year. I think he's got, 362. I think he's got basically the same. He's got one more rushing yard than he does receiving yards. So he hasn't hit him up hard on the rushing this year. Of course, they're not really a rushing team, but it seemed like he had more rushing yards last year. Maybe they're taking that away a little bit. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's about, like, to me, it's just about making the tackle. Like, okay, dude, you're going to get plays. You're going to get about 5-6 catches out of the backfield. Try not to get that to 100. If you could keep them right around 100 all-purpose, you're doing your job with that guy. But, yeah, the rushing is he hasn't been rushing the ball, or the Saints in general haven't been rushing the ball that well, because I'm looking at he's got 363, and, we know where our rushing game has been this year, and now it's improved. It had that $150, and it had, this week, the week before in that Niners game where it was about 80 or 90 yards, but it was just enough. We talked about that a couple times where it's just enough timely running. So they haven't ran the ball that well. Ingram really hasn't been doing much. So, yeah, I think it's really about containing him, man. As far as hanging with him, yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. We had problems with the last year, too. I mean, most of the league did. But, yeah, it's really about just making that tackle and then getting them on third down. And I talked a little bit about that first and second down woes at times, the chunk play. We talked about overall with the defense, especially down the sidelines, at times with the tight end. The tight end's not killing us, but when they catch the ball, they're kind of killing us. It's like, all right, that's a 35-yard gain. Where the hell did that come from? Yeah, it's all about you're not going to slow them down. You just hope to contain them. I guess that's really what you got to do with that dude, who was just a solid Tennessee player. Didn't really see this out of him. Guy is just a stud, man.
Yeah, and I think ideally that's what we want Cook to be, right? That kind of back that can swing out of the backfield and make defenses really pay for it. Yeah, you're right. As far as containing, it's just, what is containing is, like you said, keep them under 100, try to keep them in front of you. We've got athletes, we've got guys, and I think we can scheme for that. Then you also have to worry about the receivers, and I don't know who's on the other side this year. It always seems to be a revolving door, but Michael Thomas, without Xavier Rhodes, is a beast. And, if Rhodes plays and he's 85%, he's still a beast, and he torched us last year in the divisional playoff game. So, those two players, plus we all know Breeze is an assassin, and he'll just pick you apart if you're not solid in the secondary. So I think, getting pressure on him is going to be huge, and I guess if Limbaugh comes back, that'll help. But I think that's where our defensive line rotation comes in, where we just keep putting in fresh bodies and just go get the quarterback. I know we like to stop the run, but guys, when you play guys like Breeze and Aaron Rodgers, I think you plan for them a little differently, but are we willing to give up the run here to stop the pass? Is that what we're looking to do? I mean, I feel like, gun to my head, that's what I would try to do is just, stop the run on your way to the quarterback and hope that you can get to him. You definitely have the bodies to do it. It's just, Breeze is so good at, he's been around 15 years. He knows what you're trying to do when you're doing it. So it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a shootout here, and I guess that's why you pay Cousins the money to come in and maybe go toe-to-toe with them. And, if you can get some turnovers, you're going to need turnovers this game, and hopefully they go your way. But, yeah, it's an interesting game coming up, a really big game. It's going to be exciting, man.
Yeah, and I'm cluing in right with what you said a couple of different ways here. Benjamin Watson, who I believe was with the Patriots years ago, and then he was with, why can't I remember, but he's their third leading receiver, and then Kamara is their second. So they haven't Ginn and Smith and Hill, I believe, too. Those guys haven't really produced much. So Kamara is really their second guy, along with kind of a big bad Watson at times. He's a good player, solid player. So that's kind of their third guy, I guess you could say. And we just talked about how tight end has kind of snuck up on us every once in a while, not going for 120 yards or nothing like that, 8 catches, but just making the opportunities count, basically. Speaking of Drew Brees, he's heard us as a Purdue Boilermaker, and he's heard us, as a Saints, under helm there, the captain of the ship. He became the 4th QB in NFL history to throw 500 career passes just this last week. Every game, it's like he's breaking a different record or tying a record, and he is a guy that, I hate to sound like a broken record, but you hope to contain him, and get in front of him, like you just mentioned too, get in front of his wide receivers, make the tackle. And I wanted to piggyback off right there what I think it's going to be up and down game to an extent. And I feel like, I know we got the better defense, so our defense is going to have to make a play or two. Whether that's turnovers, like you just mentioned, that's right where I wanted to start. So we're on the same page there. But also red zone. Okay, you can get some yards on us. We're going to have to be the bend but don't break defense. We're going to have to do that in our offense. I'm right there with you. Let Cousins kind of, chuck it up. How many freaking times he's going to have to do it? Probably 45, 50, at least probably 50 again. Which, for guys like us, I mean, I'm not trying to date us like we're 70 and looking for retirement, but, consistently throwing 40, 45, 50 times, it's still, and this isn't college football, and it's not Warren Moon, and, at Houston, it just does, it still messes with you a little bit. But like you said, that's why we brought him here. So, yeah, honestly, I feel like we're going to win the game if we can have, of course we want Barr back, but we really need Xavier back. If he can be back 85%-ish, I think we're good to go. He was able to walk on it. It did seem like a full-on, just a sprained ankle. You could see it really hurt at the start, which it always does. Hopefully it didn't swell up a ton, but I'm sure it did to an extent anyway. But you could see him, even when he was, coming off the field, he was kind of staying off it. Then you could see him stepping on it, and you could kind of see him moving with it. So at least he could put some weight on it, so it's not like high ankle sprain, he's done for 2-3 weeks. Hopefully we can get him back. Like you said, we need him. But let's say we got Xavier back. I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be a score fest. And I just think our defense will make enough plays, whether it's in the red zone or a turnover here or a turnover there. I do like the Vikings to win this game. The over-under's at 52. 52.5 right now. I'd go over. Personally, I go over. I think it'll be 34-27 or 31-27 or 34-31, something like that. But I just don't. I like our home crowd is going to be, really excited. We played a lot of road games, and this road game schedule this year at Green Bay, we're always going to do that. at the Rams. Philly's not the team they were, but they're not chumps at Philly. Jets were a decent club. Still got New England. Seattle at Seattle in the snow, maybe or cold, whatever, potentially by December. There was snowflakes in the air, and it was pretty cold out of nowhere at the Jets. Not just this last Sunday, when all of a sudden it got to like 50 here and got warm out of nowhere. It was kind of weird. Mother Nature's pissed off at us, and rightfully so. But yeah, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings to outlast them and do. Our defense is going to make a couple of plays that they couldn't make against the Rams. The home crowd, the home cooking, that noise on third down. I just see us getting it done in a over 52.5 game.
Yeah, I agree with you on the over. I think it's going to be a lot of points out there. I just had the thought as you were talking about if Barr doesn't come back, maybe that works out having the two smaller, quicker linebackers in there against Kamara and maybe taking Barr, let him sit, because then you got both sides kind of worked out. You got a little bit quicker, a little bit faster out there with Wilson and Kendricks. Maybe that's something you try. Maybe that's something you go with. But, yeah, I think it's like you said, it's going to be a lot of points up in this one. And I think, it wouldn't necessarily be that way if our defense was healthy. I think we're going to try to run the football. I think we're going to give that a healthy try. If we keep Breeze off the field, that would be optimum. So I think we can try to run the football. I don't know how people have been rushing against New Orleans, but I think we're going to give that a good try. At least we should. If that doesn't work, then, you start chucking it. I'm going to go opposite with you. I think we lose this game. I hope we win, don't get me wrong, and I think being at home is a huge part of this. I think we have every opportunity to win this football game. I just think the way that things are kind of lining up here, I think this is the Saints game here, and I think he's pretty correct on the score. I had it something like 32-17, 32-24, something like that. I feel like they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder from last year and Peyton doing the skull chant and all that kind of stuff. I think Peyton's the kind of guy, that he's not the kind of guy to want to have a beer with. He just kind of has that face like you want to punch it. But he's just kind of guy that probably, stuck in his crawl all off season, and he's got some special stuff probably written up on the chalkboard for this one. And so I think I say we lose a close one. High-scoring game. I think maybe have a chance to come back and win it at the end. Something like that. Maybe fall short, maybe a field goal, knock on wood, or something like that where we just don't quite come up with it. But I really think this is the Saints game here.
Yeah, and, there'll be that old looking for revenge that really it feels good to win, at Philly. But as we know, that doesn't really mean anything about revenge from the last year. I just think they're kind of due for a loss, too. They did sneak by Baltimore this last week. So, it's going to be a good game, though. It's going to be a really good game. Well, it's the time to talk Minnesota Gophers. And we're going to really quickly, because we want to tighten this show up here a little bit tonight. So let's not spend a ton of time on here. I'm sure, this is where everyone's going to kind of tune out anyway. But before you know it, we're looking at I actually screenshot this. 10 minutes left of the second quarter, and Nebraska's up 21-zip. Martinez, not the Martinez from about 5 years ago. This is a different Martinez, a less experienced Martinez under the helm there at the Cornhuskers of Nebraska. 11 for 11. Some other dude, Ziegbo, had 3 carries for $105 and 2 touchdowns. One was 59. Wow. Now, I got to say the offense did fight back, but giving up 383 on the ground is just disgusting. And there was a couple of, long runs that had a lot to do with just missed frickin' tackles. So we could talk about the youth. We could talk about this and that, and we're going to get younger next year, all that shit. Well, we need some tacklers right now. I don't care how old they are. They got to tackle, and a couple of those big runs were just poor tackling, not poor play design, not, the guy was in the spot. He just missed the freaking tackle, but you also were 25 of 30 was Martinez in the air. Like, dude, this guy doesn't do this to anybody, and he did it to us. Now, we got back in the game somewhat, and then they just piled on top of us. Ugly loss. I did think we were going to lose. I actually put money on it. I did think we were going to lose, but I just didn't think it was going to be this bad. They were due for a win. When you look at some of their games, they should have at least 3 to 4 wins. I know Fleck was saying they should be 5-1. I don't know if I agree with that per se, but you can't get, you can't switch them all. You got to, they're going to lose some of these. But so it's not shocking that the 0-6 squad that was just going to win, they were at home, and that's a fan base right there. That place was jam-packed at 0-6. You got to love that. But, yeah, just ugly, dude. I don't know what else to say. Ugly. I'll let you talk about it, and then we'll preview that Indiana game and get the hell out of here.
670 yards of total offense. I mean, that's my thoughts on the game. To a Nebraska team that was 0-6, didn't have any signs of doing that to anybody else. Really disappointed. A terrible defensive effort. Now, there's some missed tackles that led to big plays. And, it can be excused. And I know they're down to, nobody in the secondary. I dig that. I get that. So I was saying that, you can't even run nickel. He doesn't have enough defensive backs right now. So, so let's say that was horrible, terrible game. We had high hopes for him. I know you might have bet against him, but outwardly we had high hopes for him going down to Lincoln and maybe setting the second half of the season up right. But, it was just an embarrassing display down there, and I guess you got to recruit defensive backs and get them in here, and we need them. Maybe if you got to go JUCO for next year or something, you just got to get some guys in here that can play and get some depth one way or another. You said 380 yards on the ground is just something that you just don't do in the Big Ten. You can't do in the Big Ten. And, a bright spot was offensively. You got to see Tanner Morgan come play a little bit. Looks like he can play. Looks like he's an adequate backup and maybe even a starter if you need him to be. I think you got some decisions to make in the off season. Are you going to keep this defensive coordinator around, this Rob Smith, who's just giving up a lot of yards, man? And I don't know if it's scheme and, Fleck will defend him till the end of the season when he fires him or what the deal is with that.
Sure.
But, you just can't. You can't have that in the Big Ten, and especially when your offense is making strides. I mean, you come back and put 22 up after halftime, get yourself back in the game, and then boom, huge run, and it's over. So, I don't think it's good for the team to be so lopsided on as far as offense and defense goes. Overall, I thought the team composure was good. They went out and they played good. Nobody looked. Besides the tackling mistakes, and the kids back there to make the tackles are young, but, it's tackle, make the tackle. Even if you give up 10, 15, make the tackle.
Right. Or get a leg and let everybody else pile on them. You know what I mean? Do something. Like horse collar them. I'd rather have that than a 58-yard field goal or run, for a touchdown.
Yeah. Targeting, pass interference, do something, look alive, I really leads me to believe that it's scheme because, these are some of Clay's players here in the front seven, and the 380 yards of rushing is just not to Nebraska. Now, if you give that up to Ohio, let's reverse it and say that this is how they played against Ohio State, and you could almost accept that before Ohio State lost to Purdue, but you could say, okay, you go into Ohio State's stadium and you do this, okay, that's a mulligan. It's Ohio State, blah, blah, blah. But this is an 0-6 Nebraska team, which everybody thought, okay, well, be competitive, and getting blown out 28-0, it just leads you to believe that something's not right there going into the game. So I don't know. I don't know much about this Indiana team coming up. I know they've played really, really well and been close with a lot of good teams.
They play
Indiana's
a program. Teams, man.
They're a program that's coming up maybe a year ahead of us in Nebraska. So, maybe they got a few more things in going their way. It's a home game. So, yeah, I like the Gophers here because they're at home, and I've got to like the Gophers because they're the Gophers. I think it's going to be a tough game. Defensively, if we don't get something fixed, we're not going to beat anybody. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the Gophers there.
Well, and I like what you said about the JUCO for next year. I believe we have 2 defensive tackles coming in, JUCO. So that's a must. I think you're right as far as some sort of secondary help. We may have one of them now that I think about it. I think he's a safety that's from a community college as well. And I really hope that we don't build it up one-sided like we did the last time. Jerry Kill deserves a lot of credit in it, in Clay, because their defense, first of all, they were not as good as recruiters, but they had an eye for talent. So 2 and 3 stars. The one thing that they did is develop. They developed, period, point blank. If I look at our secondary, none of those secondary guys that they recruited were 4 stars, not even 4 stars. Some of them weren't even 3 stars, but yet they're playing in the pros right now. They're really good players. So, and as we know, if you look at Harden, he should be here. Keandre Harden, he should be a junior and here right now playing and being a stud. But he got, wrongfully kicked out. So, there is some issues. But then our offense sucked. We could run the ball, but not usually against the big boys under Kill. But our defense kept us in each and every freaking game. And I just hope we're not so one. We've been talking mostly about the offense this year with Minnesota and all the weapons and how. So we see a lot of positives over there. But the defensive side, yeah, man, it's rough, and they were a mess on defensive line, no doubt about it. When he took over, I mean, when you lose 5, 6 guys anyway, that's rough. But their defensive line, especially the interior, just in general though, their depth was just horrible, and just the amount of people that they had even signed to play here committed to play here at the time when he took over was pretty bad. So it did fall off the deep end. They were never recruiting quite like them, but I'll say, and we didn't see it till year 3, 4, and 5, though. So next year, though, I'm going to need to see a better defense, period. And I agree. I think the bounce back, I do agree with you as far as us playing better in the bounce back. But, yeah, they played a lot of good teams and been right there with them. So I'm a little afraid of this Indiana game, but I think we will have a little bounce back. We've shown that in the past. It sounds like you're going to chime in on something there, sir.
Yeah. Excuse me. I was just going to add that you're right about the whole scandal and what that did to our secondary. I think we lost, 4 or 5 defensive backs in that whole mess. And yeah, the cupboard was bare on the defensive line. So those are kind of the places where, we're having trouble defensively. So if there is something we can throw at that as some kind of, I won't say excuse, but, an excuse is that, yeah, you're very thin on the defensive line. And I know we got recruits coming in, and there's a couple kids redshirting right now that PJ's holding on to. So, that has a chance to get better on the defensive line. And defensive backs, like Zimmer said, you just can't have enough. So, I know PJ said in his press conference today that that's a new focus. They're going to go out there and hit the road, and they realize they need six or so defensive backs. So they're going to go out and find some. And I agree now, especially in today's day and age, that you just can't have enough. And we're seeing that with the Vikings even. I mean, thank God that we just stockpiled a bunch of corn because, we need them. We're down to the last one here that we stockpiled. So we got one on the practice squad that can play. So, yeah, you just need a bunch, and that's been proven now through the Vikings and even the Gophers that you're going to need defensive backs, and that needs to be a priority every year in recruiting or drafting or whatever it is that you're doing. But, yeah, I mean, I think the future's still bright. I honestly hope that we make a change at coordinator. It just doesn't seem to be cutting the mustard. And if you look out west now, Tracy Clays is out there at Washington State. He's got a pretty good defense under him right now. This is his first year out there. So that guy could coach defense very, very well. I think Jays Havel, who was the defensive back coach under Kill, doing good things out, I think at Vanderbilt or something like that. So they're out there coaching
the defense, to be honest with you. I kind of wanted to keep those in place because, after all, look at how long the lineage goes with those guys. They had so many. That was a key thing, and you don't really see that ever. But they had so many coaches that were still in their system for years. You know what I mean? So, I kind of want – you rarely see that. But we're a top 20, top 30 defense the last couple of years with them. So, I kind of want you don't see that. Like I said, generally you don't see that. Had we gotten to the Big Ten championship game that year, maybe they would have just added that. But then would have Clay taken that position at that time? Probably not. But like you said, he wasn't the coordinator at that time because he was head coach. So I don't know. I need to see more defense. This is starting to look like the Gophers of the past with their defense. But a lot of it is explained. It is tough to wait, you know.
It is always tough to wait. And, I mean, those defenses under Kill were probably the best that we had seen, you know, in our years of watching Gophers play football. And they were solid, you know, and especially the defensive backs. You're right. We still have guys playing in the pros right now that came out of this program that are playing the kid from got two names playing for Cleveland. Brian Body Calhoun, he's playing out there, and a couple guys. I think we got a guy down in Dallas playing too. So, you know, I hate to say it, and you're right, it's hard to wait, but next year we're going to be young just because we don't have a choice. So, do you go? I know that's not on Flex plan to hit the JUCO market, but I really think you got to at least get a couple guys in here with a little bit of experience back there. You can't start. Well, see. Now, Smith will be a sophomore next year, but then the rest, you're going to start, 4 freshmen back there and hope for more success. I think a lot of it's just health. I mean, imagine if you had Winfield and you had kid at the other kid. I mean, maybe you're playing a little better back there, but it's a mess right now. And, offensively we're making strides. Defensively, I guess you can say we're making strides because guys are getting experience, but it's a tough pill to swallow, looking for tomorrow.
I mean, if this was 1984 or 83 and Rozier was in the backfield for Nebraska, I understand piling up 380 some odd yards on his rushing. I remember them, I think it was 74-6 or something like that. I remember them coming to the Metrodome and just kicking two shits out. I mean, just killing us. Even in the 90s. I get it with Frazier. I get it. That's a different, but that's not them. They're nowhere near that. And they got a great coach or a solid coach. We'll see if he's great, but they're going to be better too. It's kind of been a rough start for these new coaches. Chip Kelly as well just got, he was like 0-5 for a while. He finally got off the schneid as well. But so you got to put it all.
That's what we're looking at, though. I mean.
Yeah.
Chris, everybody's getting better. Purdue's getting better. I mean, we're getting better. Illinois is getting
Big
better.
Ten is full
the
of
whole
coaches.
bottom of the Big Ten.
Big Ten is full of coaches. I mean, especially the
it is going to be a
man.
nasty conference. In 5 years, it's going to be a nasty conference. I mean, everybody's going to be good. It'll be exciting, but if it stays at this rate, man, everybody's going to be good. There's going to be no games that you're going to go, okay, well, that's a give me and that's a give me. I mean, if Minnesota continues to get better, Illinois continues to get better. Purdue gets better. Indiana gets better. Rutgers is even making small steps. I mean, this could be pretty exciting football in 3 or 4 years if all these coaches stay in place.
Yeah, and let's hope that some of these coaches don't. You know what I mean? Frost will, but, there's a couple of them hopefully will just get bigger jobs, not our guy, though. But anyway, let's wrap this puppy up. Is there any last words that you want to add there, sir, before we get on out of here?
No, I just hope the listeners can forgive me for coming in late and assure you that won't happen again. And let's hope for a win on Sunday with the Saints.
Sunday night football, man, big game. You know they're going to be talking about the Minneapolis Miracle, and we're going to get to relive it all. But yeah, it is a big game, and if we could come out of that with a victory 4 in a row like that, one more conference game. You look at the conference games, you start to go, well, shit, if we go 3 of 5 or 4 of 5, we got this thing. But anyway, enjoy the week. You know, we got to be feeling good 3 in a row. So, you know, you got to take it back. You got to feel, when you feel good, your team's doing good, especially in Minnesota, you got to appreciate shit. So enjoy the week. We'll be back next week recapping that important New Orleans game at home. Anyway, I almost said enjoy the fights. I'm so used to saying that. Enjoy the game. Peace.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now, as you fight, let's say you fight 4 or 5 years of straight survival, the bullshit, the holdback, and when you become the world champion, you're like, you know what, I made it. Now I'm going to show you it's this. So I'm going to get every dollar worth of what I deserve. Why? Because I'm the world champion.
The Starlight Lounge presents An Evening with the Progressive Box.
Oh, what a great audience. Let's dim the lights for this next one. Nope, too much. There it is. Gotta get things just right. Like Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay, and we help you find coverage options that fit your budget. And now, the mood is right. Wait, the lights are back on again. Trudy, can you? And now it's completely dark.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
My heart skips skipping the beat. You're not close enough, so that space between you and me, let's lose it. The way you're dancing, swaying to the music, girl, that body and how you move it. Every time you cross my mind, girl, I lose it.
Alexa, play the Country Heat playlist.
Okay. I don't think you know what you're doing to me. You got
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get tens of millions of songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.